Mega Man and Bass is pretty infamous in the Mega Man community, known as a very tough game. I've heard mixed opinions on the game. On one hand, it's a tough game. On the other hand, it's a game that isn't nearly as tough as everyone makes it out to be. Where do I land on the spectrum? Well, let's find out. First, two things. One, if you could, I ask you to scroll down and subscribe. It's totally free, it gets YouTube to show my videos to more people, and it motivates me to create more content. Secondly, this is the 9th video in my Mega Man retrospective. If you have not seen my videos on Mega Man 1 through 8, I recommend you go do that, as I'll be going forward assuming that you have. And with that out of the way, let's get on to the game. Our story starts a short while after Mega Man 8. Wily has built another castle, but a new robot, King, took over the castle, stole some robots, and created his own robot army with the intent of taking over humanity. In response, Light and Wily made a truce, and both Rock and Bass were sent to defeat King. We start with another intro stage. It's a fine stage, and it ends with a cutscene and boss fight. We see Proto Man trying to take on King, but he ends up being cut in half, and just brushes it off. Proto Man goes back to Light for repairs, and we fight the Green Devil again. A fun fact about this game is that it was released in 1999 on the Super Famicom. Yeah, 9 years after the system released, we got another game on it. Apparently, consoles in Japan have a longer shelf life than they do over here in America, so they made another game for the system. I guess that explains why there were so many NES Mega Man games. But I don't think you'd be able to tell this wasn't Mega Man 8 if someone didn't tell you. Well, and if the HUD weren't different. It's pretty impressive that the team took sprites and assets made for the PS1 and put them on the SNES. This does mean that the sprites are a bit too big for this console, but that's my only critique with the graphics. The soundtrack is also pretty good. There isn't really much that sticks in my head, but there are some good songs here. After the intro stage, we've got only 3 stages as a first pick. This is interesting, and quite honestly, I don't really have an opinion on this. It's only one less boss to pick from at first, it's negligible. You might notice that on the screen there's a little crystal icon before the king icon. Don't worry, I'll get to that in a moment. One change from 8 to this game is that bolts have been reverted to how they were previously. You don't find them in stages anymore, they're back to being dropped by enemies. As I said in the 8 video, I prefer just finding them. We don't have a finite amount anymore, so you can grab as many as you want. The shop has also been changed a bit. Instead of only half the shop being available to you at the start, now only a third is unlocked at the start. You can buy 6 items, then another 6 after defeating 3 Robot Masters, and the remaining 8 appear after defeating 6 Robot Masters. There are also some parts that are character exclusive, and that's neat. Honestly, I didn't purchase all of these parts, only a few. The Energy Balancer, Exit Parts, Spike Guard, Super Recover, Auto Charger, Energy Saver, Super Armor, and Auto Recover. The Super Recover allows items to refill more energy than normal, the Super Armor reduces the amount of damage you take, and the Auto Recover automatically recovers health when you stand still. The other upgrades I bought are either self-explanatory or were in previous games, so I won't go into them. E-Tanks, W-Tanks, S-Cans, and the like still have not returned. I believe I said this in the 8 video, but this was not a change I liked. Back in that game, it meant there wasn't a good way to heal until you got Rush Charge or Rush Question, neither of which were reliable. Now there isn't a good way to heal until you buy the Auto Recover, which will only heal health when you stand still. The Auto Charger isn't available until you defeat at least 6 Robot Masters and you have to equip it. So that does sound like a fair trade-off, but it kinda falls flat for me because it can't be used during bosses. Look at Wily Machine 8. In between that fight and the fight against Great Wily Capsule, I could call down Rush and he'd drop items for me. In this game, I can't just stand still and heal, I'm gonna die if I attempt that. So this is probably the worst healing system in the series. Someone might say, but it's better than Mega Man 1's healing system not existing. Like, yeah, that's not untrue, but that's also not a high bar to clear. It's worse than Mega Man 2 through 7's healing system. Speaking of the auto recover, there are now items that you have to equip. From what I remember, I bought a few. Of course, the auto recover, but there's also the super armor, which reduces the damage you take. The game doesn't give an exact number as to how much damage is reduced, and if this weren't my footage, I would not be able to tell I had the super armor equipped. There's also the energy saver, which increases your special weapon ammo. Again, you aren't given an exact number as to how much more ammo you have, but at least this time the change is noticeable. There's also the auto charger, which automatically charges your buster. So after that, I think it's time to get to the stages. Overall, I think they're good. Coldman brings back the ice platforms that break from Freezeman stage, as well as the ice blocks from Frostman stage. Groundman stage is a segment where the more totems you defeat, the closer the spikes are to you, so you've got to only get rid of the totems that you need to get rid of. Then there's the part where dig moles come up from the ground and get rid of the ground you're standing on, so you need to be patient and wait for them. Astroman has come back for this game, and he has an entirely new stage. He's got this segment where enemies will continue to pop up, so you've got to wait for one to pop up, and then you can defeat it and move on. You can also just sit here for a few minutes and grind for bolts. It also has this segment where buttons will push themselves down, and then you need to hit them in the same order. If you fail, you get shot. The vanish blocks also come back for this stage, and they're the same as they've always been. Burner Man stage has a segment where you're going through platforms, but due to a cover in the way, you can't see where the holes in the platform are. There's also a segment where spikes appear from the floor and wall, so you need to slow down and wait for an opening. And afterward, there's a segment where the floor is covered in insta-kill fire, so you need to defeat the enemies that are standing on the ground you need to stand on. We also have some new items to look for in this game, CDs. You can find them in stages just by finding them with your eyes, using special weapons, or using Rush Search, which I never bought. These CDs are pretty neat and definitely a commendable effort. There are 100 CDs to collect, and there's one for each Robot Master from 1 to and base. There's some for Star Droids, the Genesis unit, the Mega Man Killers, even Tango gets an entry. It's pretty cool, but it's not exactly something I'm going to go out of my way to spend time looking for. Again, there are 100 CDs, and most of them require a Rush Search or a special weapon, things I don't normally have my first time going through a stage. Next, I think it's time for the bosses. I don't really have much to say on them other than the fact that they're good bosses. They're as good as they've been since, Mega Man 5? There isn't much new to say. The special weapons are kinda good though. Ice Wall was the first I got, and it was consistently useful. I mainly use it as an extra step to use when jumping, just like the Mega Ball. You can even use Ice Wall to ride over spikes and get items. Wave Burner is especially useful in Pirate Man stage since you can use it to push these spikes. Copy Vision is kinda cool as it spawns a doppelganger of you that continues firing, and then you can go off and fire at something else, or fire at the same thing and deal double damage. Route Mine is also cool as you can fire a bomb that can be aimed, and then you can detonate it whenever. It reminds me of the F-Laser from X5. Magic Card is a secondary use of picking up faraway items, and that's always useful. And I think that's all the use I got on the weapons. One thing I've neglected to mention thus far is that this game has 2 playable characters. Of course, there's Mega Man, but there's also Bass. Bass plays similarly to Mega Man, but with 2 key differences. Firstly, he can't charge his buster. Instead, he has a rapid fire buster that fires in 7 directions. Secondly, Bass cannot slide. Instead, he has a double jump. Okay, I forgot to mention in the script, but Bass can also dash. But it's not in the same way you do like in the X games, where you hit like a bumper or a trigger, and you don't do it the same way Mega Man slides with down and up. Instead, you do it the command dash way, where you hit right twice. You know, the worst way to dash. And he also has his Trouble Boost, which is his version of the Super Adapter. Bass can fly and shoot in 3 directions at the same time. It's pretty cool. Unfortunately though, I wasn't able to beat the game as Bass, and only played a little bit of his campaign, and there are 2 reasons for this. Firstly, I just didn't have time. It took about 3 days to complete Mega Man's campaign, and assuming it'd take me the same amount of time to complete Bass's campaign, that'd leave only a single day to script, record, and edit this video, and I just did not want to do that. The second reason is the reason I probably won't come back to this game. I wasn't having much fun playing the game. Now that I sit here and write about it, Yeah, it sounds like a lot of fun, but I've deliberately avoided a specific detail: enemies and damage. I just believe that enemies deal too much damage and have too much health. Bosses also deal too much damage. Yeah, it's that simple. Maybe I'm just bad, but I'm playing these games the same way I played the previous 8 Mega Man games, and I find myself at low health and dying much more often than I do in those games. So my only conclusion is that, in this game, the damage taken was increased a bit. And that's pretty much the only solution needed. This is a fun game that's well designed, but it'd be even more fun if I took slightly less damage. But there's also something else I've been skipping over: the GBA port. You see, the Super Famicom version of Mega Man and Bass was never released in the West, and we never got the game until the GBA version is released. And this is known as a pretty horrible port, and rightly so. I haven't played the port for myself, and judging by the footage and by what others say, I don't want to. Basically, they took the original game and just made you see less of the screen. They didn't attempt to resize the sprites to attempt to make the game more friendly for the smaller space or anything like that. They just slapped the game on GBA and nothing more. As such, you can't see anything. And if you're wondering, I'm playing the SNES version in English, thanks to a ROM hack made by Aeon Genesis. And finally, after all that, it's time for the castle Wait, what? Oh, we've got a stage before that. This is the Crystal Gate, and all you do here is use your special weapons to grab bolts. By the end of the stage, you should have 800 more bolts than when you started. Nice. Anyway, it's time for the final stages. King Stage 1 isn't much to talk about, it just reuses assets from the previous stages. The boss of this stage kinda sucks. It's the Atatemi no Proto, and its weak spot is the bottom of its body, and it's normally unreachable until it gets pulled up. It gets pulled up when you stand on this platform that's over a pit of lava. Strategy is to use Copy Shot to keep on hitting the weak spot while you keep on jumping up and down to keep the weak spot visible, or while not falling into the lava. This is a delicate balancing act, but all the while you got a Mon King A hanging from wire throwing things at you. Now that I type about this though, it doesn't sound too bad. I just didn't have too much fun with it. King Stage 2 is an interesting one. It's a pretty small stage and it ends with a fight against the King Tank. That's weird though, it doesn't have a health bar. Ah well, it's a fine boss. I just hit it with Charge Sauce, then went underneath and kept hitting it with lightning. But after that... What? The stage keeps going? That must have been the mid-boss, but okay, let's keep going. This part's not too long, and you have a fight with the King Jet. It's a pretty simple fight. Land on the platforms in front of you while hitting the jet. It gets hard once this jet uses the attack that takes a good chunk of your health, and you cannot dodge. So you'd best hope that you have enough health to survive this. However, even after 2 bosses, we are still not done. A short segment later, and we're at King. As I said earlier, he just hits way too hard, so I kept on spamming his weakness. He also doesn't have a health bar, so I guess he is somehow not the boss either. After that, you get a cutscene and Proto Man appears. He shows up to unleash his ultimate attack against King, and he unleashes the Big Bang Strike. King has taken some damage, and King's shield is destroyed. I do really like this part where Rock's immediate reaction is to check if Proto Man is okay, instead of taking the chance against King that Proto Man gave him. But after that, we have another fight with King. This is like our 4th boss this stage. Damn, dude, I did not know there was a stage worse than Secret Lab 2, but here we are. Anyway, yeah, another fight with King, and by now I just wanted to get this over with. After the fight, we learned that Wily built King. Oh yeah, I never mentioned about Light, Rock, Blues, and Bass, and never knew that Wily built King. Anyway, King turns purple, and I assume this means he's been fully controlled by Wily at this point. And the actual boss is the 3 previous bosses together: King Tank and Jet, piloted by King. His weakness is Wave Burner, and it's actually difficult to hit him with it. But after all that, King tells Mega Man to get himself out of there, and he'll be right behind him. Rock gets out of there, and King says he was never built with any sort of teleportation device, and he goes down with the castle. I like that. The final stage is the boss rush. You know how it goes, but at this point, put on a YouTube video and spam weaknesses. This version is actually a little bit different though, as there are small stage segments in between each boss. The final boss is Wily Machine 8. Again? I guess this is the first time the final boss isn't new. Anyway, yeah, it's the same fight from last time. Then the second phase is Great Wily Machine once more. And this fight is just as difficult and annoying as the last fight against this thing. The weak spot is Wily's head and the weakness is Magic Card. It's hard to hit him if he's above your jumping height, which is most of the time, and he'll send out a bunch of orbs that are a pain to dodge. In the end, Wily is defeated and Mega Man goes back home. He arrives and he's kinda sad. He blames himself for King's death, and Light gives him a letter that King wrote. Somehow King survived and wrote Rock a letter telling him that he intends to atone for his sins and will work to help humans. That's Mega Man's ending though. I never got Bass's ending for myself, but from what I remember, Bass attacks Wily, telling him that he didn't need to create King since he's already the strongest robot. Proto Man then shows up and destroys some blueprints that Wily's got pulled up. He then tells Bass that the reason he loses is because of his reason to fight. Rock fights for peace and justice, while Bass just fights for his own pride. But that ends Mega Man and Bass. This is a tough game to talk about. I sit here and think about things it gets right and how I should be loving it. But I just believe that this game is just a smidge too difficult, to the point I'm not having fun. And by King Stage 2, I was just done with the game and wanted it to be over with. If you haven't played the game for yourself, I'd recommend it, I just won't say you'll have the greatest time. If you decide to not play it, you aren't missing out on much. Heck, even though Bass is the selling point of this game, he was also DLC for Mega Man 10, which is a game that's actually officially available. But anyways, next week will not be the Mega Man 9 video. Instead, it'll be the Mega Man Powered Up video. So I hope you look forward to that. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.